Okay, so come sit down here with me and the dog, and we'll crack these open and we'll have a quick look. So there is going to be individual reviews on both of these. Bluetti did reach out. We've got a few reviews. We've got the EB230, which is the original old school one they sent me. Has about a 100 amp hour battery in it with a 1000 watt inverter. Then we've also got the EB3A. It's around about 250 odd watt hours, and it is I think a 300 watt inverter, so that's the little one. This one's going to sit somewhere in the middle, and it's a newer generation, obviously, of Bluetti. So your LiPo 4 chemistry, which obviously means, you know, safer from charging, discharging, etc., like that. This one, I believe, is around about the 750 odd watt hours. We'll put the specs up on the screen as per normal, which puts this somewhere in the middle. So about 3 times the capacity of the little EB3A, which is nice. Don't get me wrong, I like those little generators. I've got 3 of them now, so we've got EcoFlow, Jackery, and obviously our Bluetti. The little guys are handy, but for me, it's all about capacity. Capacity. Because I'm a big user, because I've got like my, DIY set up in the car, 300 odd amp hours in the car. I'm going to be getting around to doubling that. So I've got a second DIY battery pack there that'll go in the Pajero. It's going to give me about 600 hours. It's just, everything takes time. Ultimately, I would like a bigger one of these, but I'm going to be much happier with this one with the additional capacity over those small little guys. They're handy, etc., etc. But again, I've mentioned this in previous reviews when we start talking about the larger solar generators. For my use case scenario, these really start to become handy once we get up around that 1000 sort of, watt hours, 100 amp hours worth of battery. This one isn't that. Again, it's only around the 780, 720 something watt hours. Again, put it up on the screen for you. 1000 watt inverter with a 2000 peak. I want to start talking about some changes that Bluetti have made from their older generation to the current ones. Something we're starting to see. So we've got our 240 volt cable. That's a standard thing. Every generator, every solar generator I've got can be charged by AC, and they all supply you with the same cables. But this is what I want to talk about. In the past, with Bluetti, you've had to purchase your cables additional. So you would have got the power cable, but for anything else, charging off the car or your solar panels, etc., you would have had to go and buy some additional cables. They're starting to supply these as part of the package, so definitely heading in the right direction. The other thing that's a vast improvement in my book, going with the XT60s. I think the XT60 from a solar generator perspective should be a standard, or is becoming a standard. So you're going to get these on your EcoFlows, and Bluetti's finally made the game. So not only supplying the cables, but supplying the right cables is a step in the right direction. So in the box, this one, so you can charge it from your cigarette lighter socket in the car. You're probably going to get about 9 amps maximum out of that as far as the charge rate goes. And this one's your XT60 to your 2 MC4 connectors. Now, I wasn't aware that it come with that. I've actually gone out and bought those a couple of days ago to make sure I had the right connections for what I wanted to do with it. So if you get nothing else right, you're getting a tick in the box for that one. We've got a manual. We don't know who reads those. We will have a squiz it though, and I have to, so if there's something I've missed, I can tell you about it. The other thing I think they've done right, the flat top here. So from a solar generator perspective, you're going to throw these in certain spots and they're going to take up space, like, camper or caravan, for example. Giving that same space that it takes up back in a flat spot on top is a good use of space. I'm going to say 10-12 kilo. Again, we'll have a look at that. Out of the box, it's the same rugged, molded plastic type material. As far as your inputs and outputs, I guess this is pretty much standard affair, and they've gone with what I would call the minimum number of outputs as far as DC goes. So you've still got your 12 volt output over here, so that's a regulated 12 volt 10 amp. It's nice to see 10 amp instead of the 9 amps or 8 amps that you see on some of the other solar generators. Also included in your DC circuit and controlled by this switch here is your USB outputs. Now we've got 2 USB-C 100 watt outputs, and you've got your 2, I guess, legacy USB-A outputs there. The USB-C ports are not bi-directional, so you're not charging this unit via USB-C. You're literally either charging it via this DC input here, which can be either your car cigarette lighter socket with the XT60 on the end, the solar panel, which is the way we're doing it now with our 120 watt solar panel here, or of course you've got your AC input 240 volt on the side for the Australian version, 120 or 110, whatever it is, for other countries. Pure sine wave output, obviously, so sensitive electronics, laptops, anything with electronics in it is fine. When we talk about the load lifting to make it go to up to that 2000 watts, 1500 watts, whatever the case may be, over the standard 1000 watts, then we'll be talking about resistive loads only. But again, we'll touch on that later on. So let's just plug this straight into the solar panel. Really impressed that they've gone with the XT60s. That's a really good choice. Okay. Whoa. That is a nice display. That is probably one of the nicest displays that I've seen. And I've got to say, as a general rule, I'm going to say most of your solar generators are pretty much same. There's little differences, like, you know, the number of outputs, the way they take the inputs, the type of inputs that they've got. But Bluetti, for me, now that they're, you know, up to date, the older EB230 had a very average LCD display. Now they're doing these LED displays. That's a really nice screen. Lots and lots of information on it. What I wanted to take the opportunity to show you here is this display. Now, keep it in mind that we're trying to get this with a camera, but from a reviewer's perspective, trying to show figures and performance figures, you know, what we're taking out of something and what we're putting in and how the solar panels are actually performing, this thing is magnificent. Now, I don't say that lightly. What I mean by magnificent is I'm sitting, I don't know, what, a foot away. I can reach out and touch it with my arm full stretch. I've only got short arms, bit of a T-Rex me. But I can see this screen from, like, if I push this thing around, you probably can't see it, but I can read that. 38 watts going in, 94%, and 242 watts going out. I mean, I can see that. If I turn it like that, I can still see the 94, I can see the 42 watts. Certainly if I turn it face on, I can see it, I can read it. You know what I can do? This is my favourite position for a solar generator. On its back like that. This is how I like to run my solar generators. The reason is I've got everything plugged in, but when I come over to have a look at it, and I come walking along like this, when I stand over it, I can just see the screen. It's just that easy. 72 watts, 94%, 242 still going out. This is literally like their solar panel, as far as the best output I've ever seen on a solar panel versus manufacturer rating. This is the best screen I have ever seen on a solar generator today. Now, I don't like to do advice because I generally just like to share my experience. But if I were in the market for one of these generators and I was buying anything in this size category or higher, at a minimum, I would be going with a 200 watt solar panel. For this category, which I put this in the 750 and 1000 sort of watt hour type categories, I would say 200 watt solar panel as a minimum. Because for me, my main goal is to have my solar generator topped up every day. So I want the capacity and the solar power output to be able to match up that I can have a full generator at the end of the daylight. So look, if money wasn't an object, I'd be maxing out the solar, which I think is 500 watts on this. And with 500 watts, you're going to get it filled in about an hour and a half. So your 200 watts is probably going to take 5 to 6 hours, I guess. Like, you know, just normal daylight conditions without chasing the sun. But this 120 watt solar panel, in these conditions, now we're down to 30 watts. It is overcast and whatever. I'd be expecting this 120 watt solar panel to take several hours, sort of, you know, 5, 6, 7 hours, possibly more, to get it done, and you're just not getting that usable daylight out of a solar panel to top up that generator. So whilst this will keep this thing topped up and running, depending on what your loads on it are, it's not going to keep up with the AC inverter. Now, if I started off with the Bluetti AC70 at 100%, and all I was running was my fridge, and, you know, overnight, whatever, this would keep up. I wouldn't be using that much capacity out of the generator, and I reckon that solar panel would keep up. So I think fridge and a couple of LED lights overnight, continuously, you know, whatever, I think this would probably keep up with the 120 watt solar panel. But I'd still be leaning towards going with the 200. I don't think you can ever have too much solar. But if I was spending the money, I'd plump for the 200. Just saying. So whilst I'm over there playing with my solar in the backyard, chasing sun with solar panels, etc., it meant that I had to take the battery out the back of the Commodore, which meant because it had to be charged up, that's how I'm playing with the solar. But it meant that the fridge was now not running. This is where these sorts of things come handy. So I've gone and grabbed the AC70, I've pulled it out and I've plugged the fridge straight into the 12-volt socket. This is the simplicity and the usefulness of these things, in that I've just gone and grabbed it, plugged it in, no muss, no fuss, and away we go. Now if I wanted to get this thing just running, I'd have it plugged into a solar panel, but that's not the use case scenario for today. The other thing that I'm doing at the moment is cleaning the car out. I've gone and grabbed the vacuum over here, which is a 240-volt shop vac, and we've plugged it straight into the Bluetti. It pulls around about 1200 watts. I think it's rated higher than that, 1250. It usually mellows out around about, it usually mellows out somewhere around the 900 to 1000 watts on me, so this should handle that just fine. In testing, I've had it run up to about 1100 watts. We've got our fridge running, and then I've now turned on the AC, and we're going to be vacuuming the car using the vacuum. So here we go. I figured this was probably something good to show you, just to prove to you that we get the same level of performance, providing that you're within the range of the inverter that's in the Bluetti, the 1000 watts. It's no different than having it plugged into 240. So I just want to show you that, and hopefully you're going to be able to just hear. Obviously I can't stick that vacuum on your hand and show you the suction. You're going to have to rely on your hearing, and you obviously hear if the vacuum wasn't running the same way. So point being, this is now plugged into the Bluetti. That's it over there. Okay. And you'll see there's no difference. I don't know whether that translates on video or not, but I can tell you from my end that there is no difference in the performance whether this is plugged in to the car or whether it's plugged straight into the Bluetti. So the Bluetti is handling that, no problems. So for the purpose of testing, and for my own benefit, going back into the Bluetti. What you don't normally see are these two figures on the left and right. So this is our DC circuit on the left. You can see currently what we're putting in, 121 watts. 121 watts. 121 watts. 1.21 gigawatts. You know why that's important? That is a 120 watt solar panel. That's why. I'm so glad I got that on camera. I knew we could do better with that. I hope you saw that. I really, really hope you saw that. That is outstanding. That is outstanding. Anyway, getting back to the AC70. I've got a couple of washes that I need to do, but as you can see, I've got some work clothes here that need to go in, that need to be done, and I typically have that cycle on for about an hour. Certainly going to let me know whether this is going to do the job as far as running a washing machine for an hour. So we'll throw these in. Whilst not as exciting for you to watch, I think this is a realistic test to see how it works. So let's turn her on. Still sitting in that standby 15 odd watts. We're going to go with that one. So just a 40-degree wash, 52 minutes. That works for my work clothes. Hit the play button, see what happens. I'm really curious to see what sort of current this pulls. Report. Still got 87% left, so a little over 10%. So we'll call it 15%. So we could get something like 8 loads out of this. As far as it was about an hour cycle. Does some of heating its own water. I think it's a maximum of about 200 watts. We run out of power. I can run the washing machine off this. Good to know. Seems to be handling the 1300 watts fine. Which is quite surprising actually. one thing that comes up, certainly for me, and I know that others are the same on, and I've seen others say the same on these solar generators, not unique to Bluetti, but I want an output that I can access the DC side that's greater than the 9 amps or the, what have we got? It does actually rate at 10 amps. So some of the others are rated at 9 amps, this is rated at 10. I want some sort of output on the front DC side that I can access more than 10 amps, even if it's only 20 amps. But I've got a 12 volt air fryer coming and it's a 20 amp load, which means that I can't use it on this. So unless I then go and get my, another inverter transformer to drop it from 240 back to 12 volt, which defeats the purpose. I've got this battery here, I want to be able to use it. I would like to see maybe a little XT60 or something like that. So Bluetti, please, 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 please. So if you're load testing and that, jump on Hobartech. He's done full review as far as load testing, etc. What I prefer to do is end user testing. So the testing in the field and the testing or I want to test it against use case scenario. So if I bought this, how would I use it, right? Would I throw it in the back of the 4-wheel drive? Would I take it out and use it with one of my would I take it out and use it with one of my induction cookers, air fryers, that sort of stuff? And the answer is probably yes. Of course, we know it's going to charge drone batteries, and I can plug all the USB stuff in the front of it, the same as all the other reviews, and it's just going to work. But with that in mind, obviously I'm going to keep getting these solar generators in the future, one would hope. Let me know if there's anything in particular that you want to see tested down below, and we can look at that for future videos, or come back and test out the AC70 if that's what you want to see. This is why I'm so impressed with the fact that they've gone with the XT60, is because you can go and buy all these additional cables cheaply off Amazon, somewhere between 10 and 15 bucks for the different cables. Or worst comes to worst, I can go and buy some XT60s, or I've got some XT60s somewhere out in the shed, and go and buy the other connectors and make up my own cable for my own needs. It just makes it more compatible with everything else. Like some of the other, so like for Jackery, for example, they've got their proprietary cables because they want you to buy their cords, etc. And I got to tell you, it makes that difficult because normally buying stuff direct from the manufacturer can be a little bit more expensive, a little bit more harder to source. Sometimes you've got to wait longer. And if you lose one of those adapters or something like that because it's a unique cable or a unique plug or whatever the case may be, it might mean that you're not able to use your product. So going to the XT60, they might take a hit from that perspective, as far as now they're not guaranteed of selling you a cable, or guaranteed of you using their solar panels so they're a match. I understand that, but from an end user perspective, it's all win for me. It's all win for me. And if I was buying, if I was buying a solar generator, that would be on my list of things to consider, and may possibly be a deal breaker if you're using proprietary cables. One thing that Bluetti has continued to do that I'm not a big fan of, but in saying that, testing the other solar panels we see similar situations, is they still have input ratings on their solar controller, so their MPPT controller, that make it challenging to get the full amount of power in it. So they've got 12 to 58 volt input, but limited to 10 amps at 500 watts. So if I've got 2 lots of 400 watt solar panels, that's not going to happen. It's just a challenging voltage with a current limit that makes it a bit hard to get the maximum solar input into these things. I know it's probably not a biggie, but that's important for me. If they say I can put 500 watts in this thing, then they need to give me the ability to try and put 500 watts in it. If they had a 15 amp rating, I reckon we could have done that easy enough. But the 10 amps, 58 volts, it's going to be hard to hit that 58 volts. We could have over paneled it to increase the current, which is okay, but it's going to be challenging to hit 58 volts in panel series or parallel or otherwise with that 10 amp limitation. We'll see how we go. Love how they've done their buttons on this AC70. I love the fact that they light up when you press them. When they're activated, it's just so much easier. Whilst they've got these little AC and DC here on the screen, be able to just look at it from across the other side of the room, for example, or from the other side of the campsite, the other side of the caravan, whatever the case may be, and see these buttons actually lit up and see what functions you've got on is just, it just makes sense. Look, I've got another solar generator that I'm about to review, and it's at the other end of the spectrum to this Bluetti, right? So it's a more budget one. And look, it does other things pretty well. It's not until you go from something like that to something like this, a Bluetti, and just the fit, the finish, the buttons, the way everything just works on it. Just, again, simple little things like these buttons actually lighten up when you press them. Simple little things that they do that just make the... Look, if I'm honest, you may not even notice them. It's because I'm reviewing this that I'm just looking at all these tiny little things and trying to be as picky as possible. But if you hadn't had another, if you didn't have another solar, if you'd never had another solar generator, you probably wouldn't even notice that. You know, you hit the button and the light comes on, all good. But it's when you go from the budget end of the solar generators and you work with those, and then you start playing with something like this, it's those little touches that you notice and that you go, you know what, that makes sense, it works. And it makes the experience of using one of these solar generators just that little bit better, and that's what you're paying for here with Bluetti. One thing I would like to see in this guy is just a little bit of colour. I mean, we've got our nice little blue ring around the battery percentage, but I'd like to see, I don't know, give me the Bluetti in the colour, give me the Bluetti colour, you know what I mean? Like, it's Bluetti, give me a little bit of blue. Don't make it glare-ish, but just give me a little bit of blue in the logo, or give me the logo on it here somewhere, you know, like we've got on the back of the solar panel there. That'd be nice. I really like the grey colour scheme. It looks great. I mean, this thing fit and finish is top notch, but it just looks like all the others. It just, and look, it's got to be hard to distinguish yourself with all the competition that's out there at the moment. It seems every man his dog is getting into solar generators, and I'm getting emails off all of them. And where these do stand out is their quality, fit and finish. But let's be honest, a grey square box solar generator, how much does that stand out of the crowd just looking like that? So again, yep, you may not care, and if they want to put some colour on it, it's going to cost them money, etc. But it'd just be nice, a little bit of flair, Bluetti. You've got the best display of all the solar generators I've ever seen. Give me just a little bit of flair, a little bit of colour, a little bit of something to make you stand out from the crowd would be nice. That's the review for the Bluetti solar generator. Obviously with the solar panel there, 120 watt. I think if you go and watch the review of this 120 watt solar panel, I think you're going to see just how impressed I was with it. I only got the 117 watts when I was doing that review, but as you can see in this review of the AC70, when combined with that, we actually saw 121 watts. So I think that pretty much sums up the review of both of these Bluetti products pretty well. Basically just a quality product with quality performance and everything I'm learning to grow to expect from Bluetti. Thanks to Bluetti for shipping it out to me for the purpose of review at no cost to myself, obviously, and giving me the opportunity to share it with you guys. So that's it. Thanks very much for stopping by. Talk again soon, yeah? I'll catch you on the next one. See ya.